Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope wherever you are in the world, today has been treating you well. In today's video, as you can see from the title down below, I am going to be swatching and creating some sort of eye look with the new Beauty Bay Daydreamer palette. I literally just got this delivered and I'm excited to swatch this. I'm excited to have a little play with it, but if you have seen the pictures of this online and if you are at all interested in this palette, it is so light. Like, look at this packaging. I was so hopeful when I saw this packaging. It's so beautiful. It's like pearlescent, it's lilac, it's pink, it's like clouds and light and pastel and fluffy and beautiful. And then on the inside, I can't lie, I am a little bit disappointed in the colour story, just because I feel like the limited edition palettes from Beauty Bay are some of my absolute favourites. Obviously the quality is fantastic. That is not in doubt. I'm sure that the quality will still be the same in this one. But usually the colour stories are so inspired and the colour stories are so interesting and so different. And in this palette, I just feel like so many of the shades are the same. And like I say, I haven't swatched them yet, so I'm trying to remain positive, but I am a little bit disappointed in the colour story. I may well change my mind by the end of this video, and I am absolutely holding the right to do that. But I'm going to do some swatches. I'm going to come up with some sort of eye look. I would love to hear down below what you think, just on like first impressions before we get into it. What do you think of this palette? Because I'm very aware that a lot of people will probably love this colour story. Like, it's light, it's pastel. I just feel like there's not enough contrast in it. And like the purples are really lacking, considering, I like purples and pinks, considering the packaging is purple and pink, like candy floss, delicious pastel colours. And then there's like two purples that are so completely far away from each other. There's one pink, just talking about mattes, there's one pink, then there's one purple shimmer, one pink shimmer, and then everything else, obviously the green, but everything else is just so beige. And look at me, I like colour, so I am looking at this as a colour lover. I am looking at this as somebody who likes high contrast. I like a dark outer corner, a bright inner corner. I love pastels, don't get me wrong, I love pastels. I love the idea of this palette, but we're going to get into some swatches. I'm going to see how I feel after that, and then we're going to try and come up with some sort of eye look. But like I say, I would love to hear what you think of this palette before I like properly dive into sort of cultivating my thoughts a little bit further. So if you are excited about this palette, if you're not excited about this palette, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more makeup reviews from me. I post 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday. It's always affordable and it's always cruelty free. And let's just dive into some swatches, shall we? So starting on the top row, we have got Vision, which is a matte creamy colour, basically the same colour as my skin tone, but very, very useful to have. Then we have got Musings, which is slightly more sort of pinky beige, almost like ballet slipper sort of tone. Again, very, very light. Then we have got Imagine That, and this is like a purple to gold duochrome. And look at that, just on one swipe, I will say. Beauty Bay really get their shimmers right. And they've started putting these duochromes in the last couple of years, and they are incredible. Like, look at the way that that reflects. And if you can't tell, I love purple, so I'm very excited about that shade. So then we have got by far the darkest shade in the palette. This is the dark matte purple called Fantasy, and that is a really, really nice colour. I will say, however, that that is flaking all over my table. Obviously, I've had to pick, see, I'm making a mess now. I've had to pick quite a bit up to get the swatch, but that is very, very flaky all over the table. Never mind, I will just have to clean my table. Then the last shade on the top row is called Optimist, and this is another shimmer, but this one almost looks a little bit more like a satiny sort of finish rather than Imagine That, which is very obviously like a duochrome. It's got that shift in it. Optimist looks much smoother, still reflective, but not quite as intense in the shimmer area, if that makes sense. Then onto the second row, we have got Euphoria, which is the matte bright pink, and that looks beautiful. That with that purple would match my dress pretty perfectly. Almost like I planned it. So then still on that second row, we've got another of like what I'm considering like that satiny shimmer. This one is called Trance. Slightly more pink toned than Optimist. So yeah, they are different enough. I thought actually in the pan that they looked quite similar, but on the swatch there they do lean quite different. Trance is quite a bit warmer. Then we have got Marvel, which is a sort of mauvey, is it mauve? Mauvey lilac-y pink shade, and actually that is coming up quite different. Again, in the pan, Marvel and Musings look quite similar, but they are quite different. So again, I'm happy about that. Then we have got Cloud 9, which looks like, yes, it's more of like a topper shimmer where it's that sort of scattered, diffused glitter. Very, very pretty, very soft, very sort of ethereal looking. I'm pleasantly surprised so far. Happy about that. So then the last shade on the second row, this one is Manifest, which is like a true baby pink. Again, this was one of the ones that I thought was quite similar. And it is quite close, but also it is leaning a little bit more pink. So there is a little bit of difference there. So onto the third row, we have got Hazy Days, which is again that sort of ballet slipper pinky nude, but very, very bright. Oh, like the reflect in that is quite apparent. It's not like these ones where they're a bit sort of softer. That is very much a shimmer. That is very, very pretty. Then we have got Journal, which is more of a brownie nude. Okay, that is a lot more pigmented than I was expecting it to be. Again, I thought that this was going to be quite a bit closer to these shades, but it's showing up quite differently on the swatches. This is what I was wanting. I was wanting to be surprised at how different these swatched, and so far I am. Like I said, I'm happy to be proven wrong. So then the last three on the third row, we have got Wanderlust, which is the pink, like the bright pink shimmer. That is a proper like Barbie pink. That is very, very pretty. And that's almost got like little bits of like a gold glitter in it. Very, very pretty. Then we have got the matte green, which is actually like sort of a sage green. I mean, it matches my nails quite nicely. Very, very different for the palette. I don't necessarily feel like it matches all that much. Like that looks a little bit out of place, but also one of my favorite color stories of all time together is purple and green. but I'm just not sure about that shade of green. Like, that feels a little bit rogue. But anyway, then the last shade on the third row is Escape. And that is a duochrome. That's like a bluey turquoisey green, and then it's got little like pink reflets in it. That's very, very pretty, and actually that ties in quite nicely with the green, so I take that back. In the pan that looks really blue, but on the arm that looks really, really green. So finally onto the last row, we have got Reverie, which does look very similar to some of the other mattes. Again, this was one of the ones that I thought would look similar. It does. It looks similar enough to some of the previous ones where I feel like perhaps we could have had something a little bit different to change this up just a tiny little bit. Like, you could do without that one, and you could potentially do without like one of these. Anyway, then we have got, did I say that one was Reverie? Then we have got Nostalgia, which is a dark purple shimmer. Ooh, look at that colour. I mean, I don't know how much use I'm going to get out of a dark purple shimmer, but as far as a dark purple shimmer goes, that is a very, very nice one. It's hard to like twist my arm like up here in front of my face. Then we have got Drifting, which is the Lilac Matte. I'm a bit disappointed in that swatch. Usually the Beauty Bay pastels are incredible, and that is nice, but that just took a little bit of building. Yeah, that's a perfectly lovely lilac pastel shade matte. I'm not mad at it. And then the final two shades, we have got Utopia. Ooh, that's like a gunmetal, like silvery bronze. Very, very pretty. Okay, in the pan I wasn't expecting to think very much of that, but that looks beautiful. Like that just all over the lid with like a pink through the crease. I'm not mad at the thought of that. Then the last shade is Next Chapter, and this is a matte. And like, I'm not the biggest cool toned lover, so that's not a shade that I'm gonna get the most use out of, that like greyed out brown, but it goes with the colour story. So that is all of the shades there. We have got Vision, Musings, Imagine That, Fantasy, Optimist, Euphoria, Trance, Marvel, Cloud9, Manifest, Hazy Days, Journal, Wanderlust, Wishful, Escape, Reverie, Nostalgia, Drifting, Utopia, and Next Chapter. So that is the whole colour story. I think for science, I'm going to go ahead and swatch the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shades that I think in the pan look very similar, but on swatches I feel like they are potentially a little bit different. I'm going to go off and swatch those on my other hand, just so that we can see those ones together, the ones that I'm like mentally having a bit of a block with because they look so similar in the pan. But on the swatches, I feel like they're coming up a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and swatch those and I will be right back. Okay, so I've had to do these swatches a little bit further up my arm because my skin is not wanting to live on my hands at the minute. So here we have got Musing, Marvel, Manifest, Journal, and Reverie. And I just feel like, yes, the purple one is slightly different, the light pink is slightly different, but honestly, these three you could have just had one of them. Yes, this one's slightly lighter, this one's slightly darker, this one's a little bit more purpley, but out of those three, you could have just had one of those, and then we could have had something a little bit deeper to add into this lineup to make it a little bit less wishy-washy. I do feel like, although they are swatching differently, I do feel like this leans very, very light. I don't know how well this will work on, honestly, even mid to deep skin tones. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the listing. I don't know if they had a deeper skin tone model when they were shooting this whole like campaign and everything. I'm not 100% sure, but just first impressions, I don't know how well this will show up on deeper skin. It's very light. The colours are very, very fair. When I first saw all of the pictures, I thought it's very mid. It's not, it's very light. The shades are very light, apart from this dark purple that is quite a jump away from everything else. There really isn't anything that can deepen this up, which is of course fine if you like light makeup, but I feel like Beauty Bay are limiting themselves somewhat with the colour selection, just like the Celestial Charms that they brought out at Christmas, where it felt very dark, and that was obviously perfect for people with a deeper skin tone, but for someone like me, very, very fair, it just felt too dark to be an everyday actually usable colour story. And again, a lot of the shades in that palette looked very, very similar as well. Like, it's almost like they're looking at all of the colours and saying, yes, these colours are nice, but not actually putting them together and realising that a lot of the shades are looking very similar. That's how it feels. Obviously from an outsider who knows nothing about making makeup, but I am now going to come up with some sort of look. I have nowhere to be. I have nothing to do today, so we can go a little bit wild. I do want to use the pink and the purple matte shades. I'm very interested in this shimmer, which was called Imagine That. We're just gonna see how we go today. So I also cleaned a load of my brushes. There are more, but they're still drying over on my radiator. I did clean a load of my brushes so we can use nice clean brushes, which is always a nice little treat. So what do I want to do? Next question. What do I want to do? I'm gonna start with, let's start with a big fluffy brush, and I'm going to dip into Marvel, which was this shade, this like purpley mauve sort of shade. Mauve, I always say that wrong. I don't know which one it's meant to be, but whichever it is, I always say it wrong. And I have the Beauty Bay eye primer across my eyelid. I will leave everything linked down below that I'm going to put on today. This is the Beauty Bay eye primer. I highly recommend it. It's a lovely eye primer, and I am almost out. I need to get another one. So I'm just going to very lightly wiggle this shade all along the crease. And obviously I am doing my eyes first. I don't have any other of my base makeup on. I've lost an eyelash. So I can like clean this up. If there's fallout, it doesn't matter. Whenever I'm testing a new eyeshadow palette, I always do my eyes first, just in case. just in case. I don't want to ruin, you know, a good foundation day or something with fallout. So I've just wiggled that all through the crease and blended it up ever so slightly. I'm just going to use the same brush, and I'm going to dip into Vision ever so lightly, that lightest creamy shade, and just tickle over the top edge very lightly over that lilac-y shade. Then I'm going to take a much smaller brush, and I'm going to dip straight into that darkest purple called Fantasy, and I'm going to pack this on the outer corner, blend it in a little bit with that transition-y tone. I do really like purple. I really, really love purple. It brings me a lot of joy. Do I just want this colour all over my lid? Yes. But I need to test more than just dew shades, so I will try and come up with something a little bit more exciting. So I feel like that purple is packing on really nicely, and like I've barely blended that, I've barely spent any time blending that, but I do feel like those colours are sort of melting into each other quite nicely. I'm just going to tickle over with that first fluffy brush just to soften it down a tiny little bit more, but honestly I don't feel like I really need to. Like, that is looking really, really nice and blended, but also still really nice and intense, like right where I like packed it on, right on that outer corner. I'm just going to pack a little bit more on. This is as dark as I can go. That's fine by me, like I was about to say, which is a bit of a shame, but actually I don't know if I would want to go any darker than this, but this is what I mean about it not potentially being the best palette for darker skin tones, because this is the darkest that you can go. You know, I'm just not sure. I don't know. Due to the fact that I don't have that skin tone. You know, like I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody else, and I'm sure other people will get this and other people will try it and review it and they will give their opinion on it, but just obviously from an outside perspective, I'm like, I don't know how well this will work. So I'm just going to take, I've got two of the same brush, I'm going to take this one into Euphoria, that pink matte, and I'm going to pack that on next to the purple, soften down that edge across the lid a little bit. I do really, really like those colours together. Matches my dress. This is one of my favourite dresses and I love wearing this when I have like purpley pink, blue, plum eyeshadow, because it's got all of those colours in it. So let's try and create something like that today. I feel like that pink is really, really nice and vibrant. Like that's brightened up that purple really nicely. I don't feel like that is too dark to basically use all across the lid for my skin tone. That's a really, really nice pink. Considering that this is like the second darkest shade in the palette, I don't know, I'm gonna stop going on about it. You know how I feel about the depth of the palette. I'm just gonna go back in with a little bit more of that purple, just to really intensify that on the outer corner, that fantasy shade. I'm also just using that Euphoria shade like above the purple so that you can see a little bit more of that pink like when my eyes are open. Just tapping the tiniest little bit. I will obviously finish off like blending and everything once I've cleaned up and done the rest of my base. So now I am going to go in with Imagine That. This incredible duochrome lilac-y shade just on that inner little part of the lid there, and I'm going to just use my finger because I do find that duochromes and the such work best with like properly pressing it in with your finger. That is very, very pretty. I will just, whatever I've got left on my finger, I will just tap over the rest of the lid, just over the top of that pink and purple on the outer corner. Am I gonna have to completely eat my words? I think I am. Oh dear. So I've just added a little bit more of that Euphoria shade across the lid just to blend that shimmer, that duochrome out a little bit further out. But I think at this stage I am going to go off and clean this up and do the rest of my like base makeup and everything, I'm considering, I don't know what I'm going to do under the eye, but I'm considering putting that bright lilac matte right on the inner corner. What I would really like to do is put that green on the inner corner, but I feel like that'll be too dark for my skin tone, that green matte. I would love like a pastel mint with this. We haven't got one in this palette, so I can't do that, but I'm gonna go off and do the rest of my base and everything, and then we can finish up under the eyes and then maybe put that purple right on the inner corner. You can see where the day takes me. Okay, so I'm sorry if the camera angle just changed there whilst I was doing all of this. I kicked my camera. So I don't know what I'm doing. I am too clumsy to be surrounded by this much expensive equipment. But the rest of the face is done. Like I say, I'm going to leave everything linked down below that I am wearing. But I cleaned up the under eye and I like sharpened the outer corner, but I think I want to round it back out again. I don't think I'm necessarily vibing with the very sharp look. I did of course add a wing. Just a little wing. So I am going to take that same little brush that I was using, that dark purple, and I'm going to just sort of take that right on the tip of that brush and just start to wiggle that along the lower lash line and also soften that line ever so lightly right on the outer corner. I just feel like that's looking a little bit sharp. Which doesn't necessarily go with the sort of soft, romantic leaning vibe that the rest of the eye look is going for. So that purple is like right next to the lash line. Then I'm just going to take the tiniest little wispy wisp of that pink, the pink matte, which was called Euphoria, and I'm just going to tickle over the edge of that purple, the tiniest little bit, and just to soften that edge down a little bit and also smoke out under the lash line. What have I done there? I did too much. Of course I did too much. There we go. Just tidying that up a little bit with a clean fluffy brush, blending it into obviously all of the lovely blushy colours that I've got going on out there. Now I just need to do the same on the other side and hopefully not make a mess of that one. So that is the lower lash line, all nicely blended out. I think I am like completely happy with how all of that is looking. So I'm going to take more of a dense brush and I'm going to dip into that lightest matte pastel lilac and I'm going to tap that right onto the inner corner. I do think that this is going to take a little bit of building up just because like the swatch needed a bit of building up. I wouldn't say that this is the same pastel formula that we have seen previously from Beauty Bay. If you tried that little, was it 6-pan or 8-pan palette? I can't remember. I still have it. I still love it. From Beauty Bay. That was all just pastel colours. I'll put a picture up if I can find it. If you tried that, you know the quality of that palette is phenomenal. And that's like, this is what I was hoping for. I was hoping for that palette basically to come back as like a 20-pan palette with some other shades that weren't mattes, because that was all mattes. I flipping love that palette and you can't get it anymore. I've had it for years. I probably shouldn't still be using it on my eyeballs, but I do because I just love it. This, and the whole point of me saying all of that was to say that this pastel is a different formula to that. It's not as good because the formula that was in that pastel palette, you wouldn't have to keep building up like this. It was different to this. It was brighter. It was intense. It was like neon pastels, and this is nice, don't get me wrong, but I'm having to build it so much more than I would have had to have done with the pastels from that little palette. See, and I just don't feel like that purple is, that on the inner corner is giving what I necessarily thought it would. So do I want to put something shimmery over the top of that? Let's go in with a little bit of Cloud 9 over the top of that lilac on the inner corner. This one that I said was more like a topper, where it's sheer and it's sort of like the diffused little bits of glitter. I'm just going to use that same brush that I just wiped off on my pyjama bottoms. I'm ruining the illusion for you, but just bear with me. So it is the same brush, but I did wipe it off, and I'm just going to take a little bit of that over that lilac on the inner corner. Yeah, you know what? I do like that shade. That Cloud 9 shade, I feel like will be that sort of shade that is quite adaptive, where it will go over the top of any look and just add that nice little diffused bit of sparkle that will go with any shade. Like, that can be used with anything because it's sheer and it is just like the little iridescent-y bits of glitter. It is a little bit pink, but like, I don't feel like I would mind putting that over like the greens or something like that. So I am done, I think. I'm like, I want to add more glitter. Let me just add a little bit more of that Cloud 9 sort of up through the inner part of the crease. Yes, I feel like just tapping a little bit of that on, sort of up, if I point like that, just up in the like inner part of the crease. That's added a nice little bit of difference to the inner corner there. I like it. So I am going to go and add a lot of mascara because it's me. I'm going to go and add a lot of mascara and then we can recap. I can see how I feel about everything. There we go. So that is the finished look. I did just add a little bit of a duochrome eyeliner into the waterline just to smoke that out a little bit, but I'm pleasantly surprised. Like I say, so happy to be wrong. I genuinely thought that I wouldn't really enjoy this palette. I thought that it would be too wishy-washy. It wouldn't pack enough of a punch for me just with the colour story. And I am pleasantly surprised with the amount of colour that we managed to sort of create here. Obviously, there's only those 2 or 3, including that green. There's only like 3 colour options, and I'm not counting that lilac that I put on the inner corner as like a colour option because that really didn't show up all that much. But I would love to hear what you think of the look that I've created here. I really love it. I love the way that this has turned out. The problem for me now is, what other looks can I create with this? That's where my mind is, because I love how this has turned out. Happy to always create this look with this palette, but I've used what, 4 or 5 shades? Did I need 20? Maybe not. So I would love to hear what you think of the palette. Have you picked it up? Are you going to pick it up? What do you think of it? What are your thoughts? Do you feel like it is just a little bit too limiting for you? Because honestly, if I wasn't here reviewing makeup, if I wasn't like an avid collector of Beauty Bay palettes, truly. I don't know if I would have picked this up. As much as I enjoy it, and I am pleasantly surprised by the variety of the colours, I just don't know if there is enough scope within the palette to create enough different looks for how I like to do my makeup, which is this level of colour. And this really is the only look that I can feasibly sort of create with it. So I would love to know what you think. If you want to see a video where I create a few more looks with this, maybe 3 looks, I might be able to do 3, maybe something with the greens, something with these like sort of taupe, I don't know what words are, taupe sort of tones down at the bottom, and then maybe something that's just like a light pink. I don't know. If you want to see that, then do let me know. I'm more than happy to do it. It'll take me a little while to get that together though, because I've got a lot of plans coming up in February. I am also posting a short every single day on all of the places, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places. So if you want to see that, you can subscribe. That will be coming up throughout the month of February, but I would just love to hear what your thoughts are on this Beauty Bay palette, because my thoughts have changed a little bit. When I first saw the pictures, I was like, oh, I don't even know if I want to buy it, and now I have it. I'm making absolutely no sense. I would love to hear what you think. Let me know down below. Subscribe if you want to see more. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you ever so much for watching. Bye.